Welcome back to a new video. I thought I'd do something a little different this week. If you don't know anything about me, I'm Evelyn, I'm a fantasy author, and I have been writing for an extremely long time. By extremely, I mean like since I was 6. So, I have a lot of experience in writing. I am a professional editor as well as an author. I have a master's degree in applied linguistics. I've been studying storycraft since I was like 10, 11, somewhere in there. I help clients with developmental edits. I help them with line and copy edits. I've written a whole pile of books, like more than 25, 30 books, somewhere in there. I've lost count. I don't really keep count. So I have a fairly good understanding of writing, and my style is, you know, fairly straightforward and well established at this point. I know how to write. I have very little issue with writer's block. That's just how my brain works. However, I firmly believe that the day you stop learning, even if you've been practicing in your craft for years, I believe that if you stop learning, there's no point. You should just stop everything. So I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I got these writing dice as a gift. Why does it think that the book is an I? Anyways, come on, you can do it. Writing dice. Focus. Anyways, I apologize. My camera thinks that my books are faces. It doesn't want to focus on the box. But I got these as a gift a couple of years back, and I haven't really used them because, again, I tend to be fairly established in my writing style and whatnot. I don't tend to deviate a lot from my general ideas, from the stories that I've got queued up and working on. I've got about 8 different projects, and so I kind of know what I'm doing, what I want to be doing, characters, world, that sort of a thing. But I also want to improve my craft. I always want to improve my craft. And one of the things that I think I am not great at is kind of actually doing all the things that I said I don't really worry about doing, which is deviating from my standard practice and exploring different characters and different settings and different worlds, and also doing it succinctly. I write a lot of my books tend to be between the 50 to 100,000 word range, which is fairly normal for novels, but I don't write a lot of short stories, and writing short stories is a whole different art form. You have to condense an entire world, an entire character into a fairly short subset, a fairly short set of words, and to convey the amount of emotion that you would get from a novel in that short story is really quite difficult. I love doing short stories, I just don't do them very often. So I thought, you know what, let's practice. Let's get out of my comfort zone. Let's pick some characters and information that I don't normally do, and let's write some short stories. And I'm going to take it even a step further. I'm going to write microfiction. I'm going to use these dice, I'm going to pick the characteristics, and I'm going to write microfiction. Microfiction is usually 1,000 words or less. I'm going to go with 500 words or less, and I'm going to write a couple of different stories to try and convey a whole world, a whole character, a whole setting and conflict in just a very short amount of space, and be as succinct as possible and improve my copywriting, improve my ability to create something from nothing, which is kind of what writers do. And I thought I'd bring you along with me. So this is not about improving my vocabulary. This is not about emulating any other writer's style, which are all things that I would love to work on in my writing process at some point. This is purely about writing a short story, a very, very, very short story, and conveying that emotion and that sense of completeness in a really small amount of words. 500 words is nothing. So let's go roll these dice and bring you along as we write some stories. So as I said, I got these dice a couple of years back for a Christmas gift, and I haven't really done anything with them, so I don't really know what's going on here. It looks like we've got different colors and different words written on them, so things like setting in the future or location, the conflict, man versus self versus society versus technology, that sort of a thing. We've got the general setting, dystopian, rural, urban, that sort of a location type of book setting. And point of view, which is alternating, omniscient, minor character, etc., etc. So, and then with these this blue one is the theme, it looks like. Love, power, loneliness, etc. And then these 4 are character traits, which is going to be all sorts of fun. So let's have a roll and see what we can come up with for the first of 2 prompts. Let's start off with character traits. And I'm terrible at rolling dice, so just live with it. Alright, first things first, if I can get the camera to focus, we have a martyr complex, followed by privileged, and a non-binary character. If I can get the camera to focus there. There it goes. And then this character is charismatic. Alright, so 4 character traits. Let's look at the general setting. Oops. I don't throw it off the table. This is taking place in the future. Very fun. I love a futuristic setting. Okay, this is the proper setting. This is urban. Urban. I have done urban fantasy, but I haven't done a lot of other urban stories, so this should be fun. Let's look at the major conflict. This is man versus society. Very, very fun. Alright, point of view and narration style. Omniscient outsider. Oh man. I like limited, third-person limited quite a lot, but omniscient outsider, oof, that one's a bit rough. So we'll see how that goes. And the theme of the story is identity. Okay, that's a pretty good mix there. Let's see how that goes. Let's get the second prompt going, and then we can get on with writing. Okay, character traits. I love it when they do that. First one is empathetic. That's a lovely trait to have. The next trait is senior. Ooh, that'll be fun. Then we have arrogant, which sort of goes against empathetic, but we'll work with it. We'll work with it. See what we can do. And then there is minority, which is always fun to write. Okay, let's get moving into the rest of the dice. Our primary setting is, or the timeline is present day. Gosh, I got future and present day. I guess they really don't want me to live in the past. The major conflict, or no, the major setting is not urban. Let's not do that again. Your hometown. Well, my hometown wasn't very exciting, so we'll see what happens. And now we get to go into the major conflict, which is going to be not versus society again. We're not doing 2 of the same. This says versus man. Ooh, man versus man. Always a fun adventure. Okay, let's get the primary point of view. Not omniscient outsider.
Again, not omniscient outsider. Goodness gracious. Here we go. Finally. Antagonist. Ooh, that's a great point of view. Gotta love that. And then the last one is the theme, which will be interesting. All right, loneliness. Huh. That's quite the collection.
Alrighty, now that I have my prompts, my 2 prompts that I'm going to be working from, let's head over to the writing desk, which is on my bed because I work from bed because I have various joint issues. So let's go get nested into the blankets and the pillows and start writing.
I am just pulling up my Scrivener document. This is just a random collection of book reviews and stories and things that I keep. And we're going to start a new microfiction project. I am going through and rewriting the prompt up here to make sure that I remember all of the things that I'm supposed to be doing. For a reminder, the first one is a character with a martyr complex who is privileged, non-binary, and charismatic. The timeline is future, the setting is urban, the conflict is versus society, the narration is omniscient outsider, and the theme is identity. So let's get into this first story, see how it goes. This first story ended up being about a character named Albion Rosewood. I just plucked the name out of thin air because why not? And it ended up being about 444 words, which is 60 words less than my 500-word limit. Hooray! And it's a story about Albion as they try to kind of establish themselves in the world of whatever social media influencer-y type stuff exists in the future, and they fail miserably. If you want to read this story, I will leave it in the description box below just for fun, and you can have a read and see what you think. I really enjoyed writing this. It felt very much not futuristic, I guess. I should have leaned into that more, but I tried to play with it a little bit and make it feel familiar to our world of influencers and social media while still being just enough in the future to be, recognizable as the future, I guess. The hard part I had with this one was the omniscient outsider narration point. It's not one that I use pretty much at all ever if I can avoid it. I like third person limited, I like first person, and that's pretty much what you get from me. So this was difficult, and I definitely need more practice with an omniscient narration style. Oh boy. But I had fun writing it. It was a good time. So I'm glad I did it. And I will see what I can do with the next story. Just a reminder as I get into this next microfiction piece, the character traits that we are dealing with are empathetic, senior, arrogant, and minority, and the time period is present day, the setting is my hometown, the conflict is man versus man, the point of view is from the antagonist, and the theme is loneliness. This one was both easier and harder than the first one. Because I got to do the narration from the point of view of the antagonist, I used a first-person narration talking about the primary character, Mrs. Dalgleish, and her difficulties with kind of being separated from her daughter, being in a different country from her daughter, and maybe not being as wanted as she once was, and that sort of a thing. So that was a fairly lovely narration style to go for. It felt very smooth, very nice to write. The part that I had a hard time with was more to do with the character traits, because I had arrogant and empathetic, which very much feel contradictory to me. I know that there are empathetic and arrogant people, but writing it was definitely difficult. So I had the antagonist point of view be mostly the arrogant one, and then a shift into the empathetic. And then I had Mrs. Dalgleish, the empathetic, Nona, trying to help her daughter, and that was a bit difficult for me. I also didn't play as much into the minority trait as I should have. That one was a little harder for me because I was doing a faceless story where the characters aren't ever actually interacting face to face, so I don't really see a lot of that, which meant it needed to come through in the dialogue, and I had her from Belize, and my Spanish is really poor. Or Portuguese. I don't remember if they speak Portuguese in Belize. I think it's Spanish. Anyways, I needed to do the research, and I didn't want to do the research, so I didn't lean into that as much as I could have, and I should have, and I think that's an opportunity missed. So for next time, I will know better, and I will do my research before I start writing. I did end up going about 70 words over my word count limit for this one. It ended up being about 570 words, which is fine. It still counts as microfiction, but I was definitely trying to keep it under 500 words. I ended up deleting some at the end, but it still ended up being about 570. So another thing I'll have to practice for the future. Oh well, it was still a fun story, and as with the first one, I will leave it in the description box below so you can read it if you like. Overall, I had a really fun time with this exercise. It was definitely challenging. There were, like I said, their narration styles that I don't normally use, and some of those character traits were difficult to explore fully in such a short time and with my limited knowledge. And so I think that I definitely can improve in some places, but I really enjoyed this exercise, and I will probably be doing more of this in the future because it was quite fun. So yeah, I love learning about writing craft, and I love improving my writing, and there are lots of ways to do that. Reading is one, practicing writing is another, and trying to do different styles and different forms and different genres. It's all a great way to practice writing. So I am very pleased to be able to do that, and I hope that this was a fun, maybe educational adventure for you too. So thank you for hanging out with me today on my writing adventures. I hope you have a fantastic day, happy reading and happy writing, and I shall see you next time. Bye.